Wow. Thank you, Dr. Armstrong, for that very, very kind introduction, and President Walls, the Office of Alumni Relations, and to everyone else and anyone else who played a role in all this. Thank you for this recognition, Citation of Achievement. I am so very proud and humbled to join the other citation honorees and those who have preceded us that have stood here earlier today. You cannot imagine what a true honor and a distinction it is for me, one that I will truly always treasure. And good morning to all of you. Board of Trustees, faculty, students, family and guests. I must tell you, the last time that I stood at a podium on this stage, it was a very different circumstances. I was not dressed in an academic robe or symbols of achievement or other excellence. No, I was dressed in a ridiculous leotard and tutu. See, I played a foolish fairy sprinkling pixie dust on the two main characters of a Tatler Review skit that you heard a little bit about here today. One of those characters was a Grammy Award winner and former Achievement Citation honoree, my dear friend and fraternity brother, Professor Dan Belcher. My lack of any discernible acting or singing skills relegated my contribution to that Phi Gam Tatler Review skit to prancing and dancing around this stage as a whimsical buffoon. So it is with great honor that I return to this very same stage in a very different attire and a very different role. I will promise you I will do my best to not repeat my last performance, but my dear friends at Jewell from days gone by have, I'm sure, wagered very good money on the return of the foolish character in leotards and a tutu. I'm also very delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you this morning. But I must admit, especially after Dr. Jackson's comments, I'm a little intimidated. This is quite the stage, Senator, honorees. But another story before I go forward. In addition to my foolish behavior on this stage, my history of public speaking at Jewell was far from stellar. See, the last time I gave a public speech at Jewell, it was in Dick Brown's Communication 100s class. It was my freshman year, and the subject matter that I felt most comfortable talking about in front of others was sports. I did play on the football team, believe it or not, but the topic of my Communication 100 speech was going to be on basketball. And I truly, truly admired Professor Brown, and I always wanted to try to impress him. And he had taught us, before we give remarks, we must try to grab the audience's attention in some manner. So I decided that I would stand in front of my Communications 100 class with a basketball in my hand, turn around, spin, and fake like I'm throwing the ball at them. Well, I was a freshman in my Communications 100s class, and so I was a little nervous like I am now, and your palms get a little sweaty. Poor Chris Rubrick. Sitting in the front row of that class was not his best choice of the day. I'm not sure his nose will ever be the same. But no worries, Board of Trustees. I brought no basketball today, and I will attempt to grab your attention with old stories of leotards, tutus, and my days gone by at Jewell. Well, it's at this point I'm sure Professor Dick Brown would be looking down at his watch and wondering when I was ever going to transition to some topic or theme. I know my wife over there is thinking that if Dick Brown is not. So without further delay or stories, I will endeavor to impart some thoughts and observations and maybe a little advice on a partial life lived. First, some thoughts and observations. We live in a very, very divided nation and society. A recent Pew Research survey found over half of all Republicans and nearly half of all Democrats believe their political opponents are not just wrong, not just misguided, but immoral. Unfortunately, our societal divisions have spilled well over politics, spurred by misinformation and social media algorithms. The viciousness and discord in our society has invaded our churches, schools, and even our family living rooms and dining room tables. The internet has improved our lives in many, many, many ways, but it has also served as both the fuel and the mechanisms to spread extremism and polarization. You don't have to look far beyond Ukraine to see an example of that. And I'm sure I don't need to tell all of you that this is detrimental, not just for the world, not just for our democratic institutions, but our culture and our way of life. If we can't coexist and come together with certain shared interests and common goals, then the very foundation of our civil society erodes and begins to crumble. For this reason, we must seek to overcome the vitriol and strengthen the bonds that bind us together. When I was at Jewell, I read Democracy in America by Alex de Tocqueville. And for those of you not familiar with de Tocqueville, he was a French political philosopher and historian. He was sent to America by the French aristocratic monarchy shortly after our fledgling democracy was born to examine our democratic revolution and study American society. De Tocqueville spent months traveling around our country attempting to absorb the nature, the fabric, and the character of our people and society. He made many observations during his travels, but many are the source of many different chapters in his lengthy book. But what I remember most of his travels and observations was de Tocqueville's commentary on American individualism. De Tocqueville admired that our country was growing and thriving, fueled by the entrepreneurial spirit of our people who sought to improve their lot in life. But de Tocqueville theorizes individualism could lead to our detriment. De Tocqueville observed that our individualism must be tempered with a sense of common purpose and identity. Quite simply, he cautioned that if we don't have something that binds us together, that brings us together as a people, we will destroy ourselves from within as we fight scrap to chart our own selfish course. De Tocqueville's observations and critiques are more pertinent today than 200 years ago when he penned and authored his book. When I was young, I would frequently complain to my dad when I thought something was unfair or unjust. He would always respond to me, "Whoever told you life was fair?" Now that didn't sound great to the young ear, but it was great advice. While we can't always change the hearts and minds of others, we can look within and change ourselves. We can combat our individualistic nature and public discord by improving our own behavior and our interactions with our fellow man and our fellow students. My advice to you, seek to love everyone. Those you agree with, those you disagree with. Strive to listen, show empathy, care, truly care for others, even those you may distaste or disdain. This does not mean that you should sacrifice your beliefs and values, but you should respect the beliefs and values of others, even if you adamantly and maybe even rightfully disagree with them. In a nutshell, love one another. If we can do that, I have faith and hope that the stability of our democracy and our civil society will be ensured. And you, I and those that come after us will be better off for it. In a letter to the Corinthians, St. Paul addressed this topic much more eloquently than I could ever do. St. Paul said, "If I speak with the eloquence of an angel, but do not have love, I'm a resounding gong or a clashing cymbal. And if I have the gift of prophecy and comprehend all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have the faith to move mountains, but I don't have love, I am nothing. If I give away everything I own, if I hand my body over so that I may boast to others, but I do not have love, I have gained nothing." St. Paul described love as patient, kind. St. Paul said love is not jealous, it's not pompous, it is not inflated, it is not rude, and it does not seek its own interests, it is not quick-tempered, and it does not brood over injury. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. So there's faith, there's hope, and love. These three. But the greatest of these is love. So my advice to you as you leave here today, I hope you will take St. Paul's words to heart and you love. Thank you very much for this great honor. God bless.